Hey ladies, this is Jennifer Davis, and I am coming at you in a recording because we wanted to make sure that this video would be available no matter what time you guys needed me to be. But also I work a really busy life, and so I wasn't really sure that I would be available at the time that you needed me. So I thought it would be best to just record a video for you. And then you'll have this recording available to you later as well, so you can rewatch it. So I want to thank, first of all, Laura Lee and Javon for inviting me to speak to you. I have been following Laura for a while. I love the work that she's doing, but like I said, I'm really busy, so it's really hard for me to get involved in stuff like that. But the last retreat I attended because why not? And I wanted to see what they were up to, and I really liked what they were up to. I've been to a lot of retreats over the years, and one of the things I really liked about the retreat was the connection piece. And, you know, not really something I'm planning to get into, but the importance of connection and shared experience can be also really healing. But today I want to talk about daily habits that heal. It's something that I'm actually really passionate about. Whenever I'm working with someone who's trying to overcome, whether it's goals they've set in their mental health, spiritual health, professional development, like I'm always thinking like that's all comes down to those daily habits, because success doesn't happen overnight. It happens through consistent behaviors over time. And so that's really what I want to teach you as far as healing goes. And we're here because we've all had trauma in our past. Our trauma is all different. But the interesting thing about trauma is it affects us all the same way. We can usually share what we're feeling in our body or what our experience is physically, and it's going to be very similar. So my trauma specifically is betrayal trauma, and I was in the past 6 years is really where I have dove into understanding that even more. I was just telling someone earlier today, you can't heal what you don't know. And I remember learning about hearing the word betrayal trauma for the first time and just getting really curious about it and feeling really validated about it. So it's okay to like look for a name or a title to what you're experiencing, because then sometimes that opens up a world of tools that maybe you didn't have before. But my background experience actually comes from 18 years being married to somebody who struggled with sexual integrity through porn use and other types of activities. And so I didn't go into that situation knowing about that, and I sometimes look back and I self-reflect, like what was going on for me in my childhood, like what patterns was I repeating, and what can I do now to prevent that pattern from repeating again. And everything that I was learning kept going back to these daily habits. And you know, you see these people, you know, doing like the start of the new year, like New Year's resolutions are so popular in the new year. They're like, I'm gonna go on a diet, I'm gonna start exercising, I'm gonna drink more water, and it's like all these things are doing at once, and that's actually not sustainable. So I'm gonna talk about how it can be sustainable. Before I get into that though, a little bit more about me. I am a single mama, so I decided to leave that marriage and move on from that. So I'm a single mama now with 4 kiddos. Life is pretty amazing. I actually really like being single, but being married to 18 years with somebody who really struggled with who they were and their self-worth, and loving a wife as they're supposed to love a wife, and loving kids as they're supposed to love their kids. Like, I really gained a lot of freedom from, you know, the exodus of that relationship. And so even though that's a marriage and that's a really big decision to make, there's also a lot of trauma there. So it felt like the right thing to do, but the trauma of, you know, setting boundaries with somebody that was not kind to you, experiencing abusive behaviors as a result, the trauma of divorce and being abandoned or rejected as a result can leave people with a lot of hurt, and that hurt then can manifest in different ways. And so my therapist really kind of got into me on the things I need to be doing every day, and we made them little things, because when you go through trauma, you don't really want to make big decisions. You're not really in a place to do like big grand things. You just got to do little things, little tiny baby steps. So that's what we're going to do. So in the process of all that discovery, I was in a support group, which I really recommend getting into a support group for your particular trauma. So I was part of a betrayal trauma group, which is something I'm probably going to be doing before the end of the year. And then also therapy. I loved working with a therapist. My therapist was a certified sex addiction therapist who was also an APSATS, which that's what I kind of wanted to share with you is through that process of therapy, my therapist encouraged me to seek a certification in life coaching so that I could go on to get my APSATS, which trains and allows me to provide professional support to partners affected by problematic sexual behavior and betrayal trauma. So I'm going to give you a crash course in one of the most effective things I've learned to help overcome the things that hold you back from your healing. So in your packet, you have some handouts that I made. They're kind of pink in color. You can pull those out. There is a notes and takeaways. So this is a good spot to write down maybe something that sticks with you. Maybe I trigger you in a good way. Something that you don't want to forget. So write that down. Questions, comments that you have, concerns, write those down. But I also want you to stay present while I'm talking. So keep in mind, I am going to make sure that you get this recording so you can listen to it again. So I'm also going to keep this short for you so that you can spend some time on some homework that I'm going to give you at the end. If time allows, I'm going to come back live for you to answer any questions that you might have. So again, write those down if you have them. If time doesn't allow for me to come back live, that's fine because my contact information is down at the bottom of that note sheet. My email is there. My website is there. You can read a little bit more, my blog, and connect with me that way. Or you can go to my social media on Instagram and Facebook. So all that is there for you. And if I didn't say it already, I'm a single mom. I got 4 kids, and chances are you will hear them at some point in time because I can hear them. So hopefully we've not interrupted today. So in my experience, the hardest part of healing is doing the things I knew I was supposed to do. Okay? Like, you know you're supposed to eat healthy, but yet you don't. You choose other things. So that's kind of hard. So when working to come out of the belief system that our trauma created, maybe it's self-worth issues, maybe it's I'm not worthy of healthy behaviors, like something like that. We tend to make daily choices that hold us in a place that we don't like. I really struggled with wanting to numb out whenever I wasn't working or mothering. Actually, my entire marriage, I was probably numb most of the time because I didn't want to face the issue that I was dealing with. Maybe I didn't even know what I was dealing with. But what I would find is like hours would pass by and I would be scrolling social media. So I just had a lot of boundaries there. So the thing about that though is I would look at these people that are healed living this life that I wanted. But what we don't know is the hard work and the little steps that it takes to get there. We just see these people with their results because they don't normally let you see the ugly. And actually that's one of the things that I do on my social media. I let you see the ugly. Maybe it didn't happen right at that time. A lot of what I write is past. Like I write it and then I don't share it for a while. Maybe I want to wait on God to give me permission. So I do share a lot of raw stuff on my social media for that reason. But plus when it comes to healing, there's this like 100-layer onion that we have to peel back on each moment of our life. When I think about my betrayal trauma, I start to think about things that happened to me as a child. And so I have to peel that back. But these past 4 years, I have found that the smallest consistent action created results for me over time. Even at my worst, I was able to do something to push the needle forward. That's really where I want to encourage you. So that is actually what I'm going to talk about today. That's where my focus is going to be. I want to help you actually do the things that you know that you should be doing by making them easier for you. And this goes way beyond just doing what you're told. How many of us are told, Just give it to God. I can't even tell you how many times I was told that. Just give it to God. When it came to our pain. But what the heck does that look like? What I want to help you do is get unstuck by sharing with you how I did it and still continue to do it now. I don't do anything different. I've been pretty consistent the last 4 years. Things that I do today now don't look much different than they did 4 years ago because healing doesn't have a destination. It's a journey, and you're always going to be on it for the rest of your life if you choose to get in the car and drive. Remember, you got to get in the car and you got to drive it. What success looks like is creating a life that you don't have to keep healing from. Okay? So let's go deep for a moment because I want you to understand how important this is to your success in overcoming the things that have hurt your heart. We all have this unique coding or programming in our brain called beliefs. Programming stands for all the information that you were given about yourself and the world at a young age. To believe something means it is valuable to us. You know, we've got our belief in God, for example. Not all of our beliefs are serving us, though. And some we may not even be aware that we have beliefs on. I know that I really had to dig into self-worth beliefs because I always thought that I was a pretty cool person. And then I realized I was making choices in my life that are aligned with having a low self-worth. The thing is, most beliefs, or some beliefs I should say, is so ingrained in us that we don't really have to remember to believe them, okay? Think about when you pass by a mirror and you see yourself, what do you think in your brain? You know, you don't really have to think about it, you just do. You believe it. And then we continue to look for evidence to prove that those beliefs are true. I'll give you an example, and this isn't my experience, but I see a lot of women do this who come out of, relationships where trust was broken, where they think all men are not trustworthy, and they start to project that onto it. So this is why I did not get into any relationships when I was newly divorced, because you overthink everything, and you're looking for evidence to prove that what you believe about men or women or work or whatever your belief is, yourself, that it is true. So our beliefs create our experiences, and this is why we repeat negative patterns. This happens a lot in our relationships. Why do we always seem to be attracted to the same type of men? Why do we always end up in the same situation with our coworkers? Why do we keep having financial emergencies that set us back years? So the good news is that when you change your beliefs, you completely change your experience of yourself, other people, and the world. The reason why is that belief creates thoughts. Thoughts create feelings, and then feelings create behavior or habits. One thing I do want to kind of input in this is that your feelings, while they're valid, are oftentimes irrational. So we want to make sure that when we have a feeling about an experience, we need to ask ourselves, what is the story that I'm telling myself? What can I actually record with a camera? Because that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that logic and that truth in there. Your behaviors or your habits are what create your results. So I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to talk a lot about myself and give some examples of myself so that you can kind of understand these principles. So as a child, my parents are divorced when I was really, really young. And so I did the whole weekends at my dad's. As a child, my father did not do things that made me feel like I mattered to him. Like regular phone calls or making plans with me, just things like that. I didn't believe that I was worthy of having a powerful, well, hang on, let me go back to what I was just saying here. So as I grew older, this started to affect my beliefs about God. And I can remember in hindsight, looking back through my marriage and all the praying I did for my former husband and our relationship, I started to believe that I didn't matter to God. So going back, as a child, I believed that I didn't matter to my dad. As I grew older, I started to think I didn't matter to God. Then I married someone that actually confirmed that belief and then continued that experience for me. So I want to say this again. The sequence is beliefs create thoughts, thoughts create feelings, and then feelings create behavior or habits. Okay? And your behavior and habits are what create your results. Going back to my belief that I didn't matter, I didn't believe I was worthy of having a powerful relationship with God, and that in turn affected my prayer life, my understanding of the Bible, and then over time, I gave up my voice, I gave up my boundaries, and I gave up my intuition. Okay? So I'm not blaming myself for the situation I found myself in, but I did play a role in that because of the programming that I had as a child. The other thing I do want to say, because it's probably going to come up for some of you as you go through some of the work at this retreat or maybe ongoing, your parents did the best they could with what they had, okay? They were trauma experienced people raising children in a trauma experience world. So working on forgiveness towards our parents can be really powerful in our healing as well. So going back to that experience that I was having, you can see how this long-term cycle became part of me. I didn't even know that it was there. So in order to get different results, I had to change my behaviors and my habits. The problem is that a lot of people focus on the end result. After my divorce, I didn't want to hurt anymore. I was single and ready to mingle, or so I thought. And it wasn't long before another man actually started to show interest in me. It's kind of bizarre, actually. Random friend request on Facebook. And I had no idea what was going on, because it just seemed too good to be true. But you always wonder, you know, God, is this you? And so he was everything that my former husband wasn't. But yet I still didn't feel peace about it. And at this point, I had 2 years of therapy under my belt. And so I didn't want to ignore that piece. Because remember when I said I gave up my intuition? I wasn't going to do that this time. So because of all of that, I had better beliefs about who I was and my self-worth. So I was able to see through a healthier lens to find those red flags in me and in him. And I knew patterns didn't go away that quickly. And I was right. I was starting to repeat a pattern. And the difference is now I had eyes to see and a voice to speak up. So I had opened my eyes. I had started to strengthen my voice so I could say no. It was hard. But I look back on that situation with gratitude, because I realized God gave me that experience in a safe way so that I could practice the tools that I was already using and starting to get really consistent in. So this is where we need to start paying attention. When you start to work with tools for healing, you will start to notice this trend. This awareness will help us start to shift. Most people will see results quickly, or I should say most people want to see results quickly. And if they don't see those results quickly, they start to think it's not working. We're notorious about doing this at the gym or with dieting. It's like a week we should start seeing results, right? That's what we always tell ourselves. But what I've noticed is that 3 weeks was what I call that give up time frame. That is why I started to consider how these little daily habits can help us shift this 3-week cycle. I was able to push the lack of results and hold on a little bit longer. So I'm going to share with you a few hacks in a couple of minutes that I learned to help me push past those 3 weeks. If you can expect it, then you can plan for it, okay? So it's really important. So when I first realized that I was dealing with trauma, maybe 6 years ago, well, actually more sooner than that, probably more like 3 or 4 years ago, and I was facing the end of my marriage, my heart, my mind, and my soul were a wreck. And I felt like I didn't have any anchor. I had no stability. Everything hurt, and I was feeling all the feelings. So I went from being in this relationship where I couldn't feel any feelings because it was not safe to feeling all the feelings. And that can feel really chaotic to somebody who is not used to that. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to do. And so I started grabbing at every tool I can. So my helpful but toxic behavior is I want to problem solve when I'm not feeling good, emotionally or mentally. So I want to grab at every single solution I can to get past that pain as fast as possible. So while that can be helpful, it's not always helpful when maybe you just need to sit with what you're feeling. So daily habits kind of help me slow down in that. So what I found was really helpful at that time, because it helped me to find what works best for me, is some weeks I could do all the things, and then other weeks I could do bare minimum, especially when I was triggered. Especially if you struggle with PTSD and you get triggers for that, you find that it's really hard to do these things. Have your bare minimum plan in place so that you just kind of get into that habit. So the point is, though, I was doing something, okay? I was making progress. I want you to remember this. Progress over perfection, okay? Progress over perfection. So the other thing that I was going to share with you, because I want to make this really relatable, is that during that time I really struggled with comprehension. This is really common due to what most of us call trauma brain. I remember really struggling with scripture at the time and like understanding it. Like I could read, whatever in the Bible, and I'd really just not follow it very well, make those connections. Everything just seemed really complicated. Following instructions from school on something I was supposed to do for all of my kids, so complicated. I just really struggled. And so I didn't tell anybody this for a long time, because honestly, I felt a bit of shame around it. I felt like that shouldn't be normal. Something's wrong with me. And I don't remember what. I didn't tell my therapist for a long time as well, but I remember listening to somebody that talked about like post-divorce symptoms or something, and they brought up trauma brain and how comprehension is really hard for us. So when I did finally tell somebody about my issue with scripture, especially my precious friend told me to read Psalms. And at first I wasn't really getting anything out of it, but I committed to reading a psalm a day. And what I really loved about it is I realized how messy David was. He was hurting, he was raw, he was reading my mail every single day. Psalms was a soothing balm to my soul. And this small daily habit completely transformed my prayer life. So, psalm a day. It takes like less than 5 minutes. Some of them, it's only 2 minutes. And one of the things I would do is I would try to find a verse or a line in there that would like jump out at me specifically. So now when I open up Psalms, because I still do a Psalms a day, and I've been reading them over and over again, I see what jumped out at me the first time, and then the second time, and then the third time, and it's just really interesting to see how that's evolved for me. So at the time, I felt a lot of anxiety about the future as well. How would I make it as a single mom, 4 kids? The fear was really stifling for me. So someone made me feel worse by telling me fear wasn't from God, which we all know that to be true. But then I started to have guilt about having a lack of faith. So I remembered something I read about gratitude, probably from Brene Brown or somebody like that, Mel Robbins, somebody like that. So I started doing a gratitude journal. So when I talk about bare minimum, I'm kind of getting into those examples for you. So at first when I did my gratitude journal, it was just really, really short. It was things like grateful for my house, grateful for my kids, I'm grateful for my job, etc. But after weeks of this, my list got longer and it got more complex, which actually I should grab it for you really quick and let you see what that looks like. So yesterday was probably a really good example of a somewhat bare minimum of, for me, I had 6 items listed in gratitude, okay? It was like beautiful weather. Pool time for my kids. Amazing tacos I made for dinner. Since I was feeling kind of blah that day, I made sure to do something that's on my daily habits list, which is time with my plants. putting my fingers in the soil, clipping the leaves, like plant care. That's a big deal for me. But then the day before was a good day for me, and my gratitude list was a lot more. And it was a little bit more specific. It was, again, beautiful weather, clean bathroom, have gratitude about that kind of stuff. It got the way my son smiles at me, or the little dimple on my youngest daughter when she smiles. Like, it would get really specific about that. And over time, I started to notice like the gratitude becoming more ingrained in my day. So, what I found is that gratitude, well, let me go back to triggers. So in instances where I would be triggered, or my trauma would be a little bit stronger for me, or the pain would be a little bit bigger, I would find gratitude in that. So I would instantly go, okay, what about this experience can I have some gratitude about? And I would start to get there. And so when you actually start to turn those bad experiences into gratitude, then you can move past them a lot faster and learn from them and not repeat patterns. So we're kind of getting a little bit deeper than the whole daily habits thing, but I'm just wanting to explain to you just how important these habits can be. Little small habits can make big impact on you over time. So at first, your habits are going to feel more like going through the motions. Like I mentioned, my gratitude list was just really surface, and then it got bigger. But eventually, you know, your belief system will grow in them, and you will start to feel a stronger experience as a result. If I didn't have my own testimony in this, I would not be able to speak about it with such confidence, but it does work. I have a lot of confidence in that. And when I have people that come to me asking for help and they can't go to a therapist, they can't afford support group work, or maybe they can't even get away from their kids, or maybe they're in an abusive situation and they can't even read a book on the subject or read an article on it. You know, just these daily habits can make a huge difference, and it's not anything that anybody knows that you're doing, especially if you're not writing them down. But I do encourage you to write them down. Okay, so let's take a look at the daily habit sheet. So I actually gave you two. There's a blank one and there's a suggested one, which mine has a lot of notes on it. So what I want to do is look at the 6 areas of habits that you're going to focus on. Try not to get overwhelmed by this, because my suggested one is really long. You're going to make your own, and I just want to encourage you to put 3 in each category for now, or even 1. Let's start with 1 if we need to, but 3 would be really good. So what we're going to do, we're going to talk a little bit more about these, and you'll see that some of these things you might already actually be doing in your life. Now you're going to just do them with more intention. So I gave you some examples or suggestions of each area of focus for you to give you some inspiration. But ultimately, these are for you, so you might come up with some different ones. Let me just kind of go through some of these. Physical, so moving your body. There's something about moving your body that helps you get out of your head and into your skin, okay? So definitely move your body. I used to go for walks, and then it got to the point where every night I would take a different kid, and it became quality time with one of my kids. But my walks were something that eventually, if I didn't get it, I felt crabby. Drinking more water. As I've been talking, I was thinking, man, I didn't bring any water to the desk, and I really need water. Drinking more water, taking your vitamins, eating 3 meals a day, or if you're the opposite, where you're overeating, learning to have some boundaries there. Nutrient-dense snacks. Turning off electronics are really powerful. Bedtime routine, going to bed early, stuff like that. So then going over to emotional, one of my favorite daily habits in this area is the emotions wheel and the highs and lows at the end of the day. So we consistently do highs and lows at the dinner table. My kids and I, when we're eating dinner, I'm like, all right, and I'll say my oldest kid, what's your feeling for the day? And we actually have a feelings wheel in your packet as well. And this is the same exact one that's sitting in my dining room. And my kids will grab it, and what you do is you go to the center circle and you pick one of those feelings. So if, let's say, you're feeling sad, then you come out to the second layer and you find the feeling that you're feeling there. And then once you identify that one, then you come out to the third layer and find the feelings that are associated with that, and then pick that one. What this does is this starts to create emotional intelligence in you. And it's okay to feel more than one feeling at a time, okay? I am feeling happy, sad, and fearful all at the same time right now. And that's okay because feelings are like that. So definitely get a feelings wheel. And then we share highs and lows as well, where we're like, what was your high for the day and what was your low for the day? So in there, okay, so on that one, I also have emotions journal. Down in spiritual, I have a prayer journal. So if you're like, well, what do I journal? Journal about your feelings. What are you fearful about? Where do you feel it in your body? How are you acting out in that behavior, in that, or that feeling? How is that feeling manifesting behavior in that moment? What would you do differently if you didn't feel that right now? Which is a really powerful question. I have positive self-talk and daily affirmations in here. One of the things I did is on my mirror in red lipstick. I'm a huge fan of red lipstick these days. I wrote, I matter. So as soon as my former husband moved out of the house, I wrote on the mirror, I matter. And then my girls saw that and they did it too. They wrote their own little affirmations. Positive self-talk is like catching yourself when you say something negative about yourself. Don't do that. So that can be a daily habit. Spiritual daily habits, reading scripture. Psalms, like I said, was one that was big for me. A devotion, actually, I have a devotion suggestion. This is the one that I started with when I was at my very worst. It's called Embraced. 100 Devotions to Know God is Holding You Close. This is by Lisa Turkhurst, who runs Proverbs 31 Ministries. She has her own betrayal trauma story, and you can see it peppered in all of this content. It's so good. But these devotions are super short. They take less than 5 minutes, and I started my day. So my rule was before I picked up my phone in the morning, I did my devotion, and I drank my glass of water. So there's 2 daily habits right there off the bat in the first 5 minutes that I'm awake. Worship playlist. When you are feeling really, really crummy or traumatized, put on I Am Surrounded or Healing Rain or Oceans, something to help ground you, okay? One of my favorite ones, and it gets me every time, is it's the song Thy Will she's a country singer. She kind of is now, but she sings a few inspirational songs. Thy Will. It's a really good song. Okay. Intellectual. Now, this is the hardest part for people that are in trauma, is to do intellectual things, but this is really, really important to your brain development. Reading a book. It can be a book that's for pleasure or a book for personal development. I read a lot of books for personal development. The Bible doesn't really count for this, by the way, just so you know. Watching a TED Talk. I can be very addicted to TED Talks. I love them, but they really inspire me. That's why I do it. Learn something new, do something hard, or solve a problem. The reason why I wrote those down on there and I wanted to talk about them is because these 3 things help you develop self-worth, okay? So I got a job doing something that seemed really easy, and then I quickly made myself up into management. So that serves these 3 for me every single day. And because of that, I can feel my brain start to rewire, and I see the results of that over time. Relational. Do not shut yourself in and push everybody out, okay? Relational, a support group for your trauma. Mine was a betrayal trauma support group. A therapy group. If you can't afford one-on-one therapy, look into therapy groups. Art therapy could be a good one. Cook a meal with your kids. I try to do this every day, cook a meal with my kids, and I get to have one-on-one with them, and I get help in the kitchen. Have a coffee date. Now, if you're dating, this might be part of that, and you want to just be really mindful of your boundaries with that. And then making new friends. It doesn't have to be people in your, a lot of times we feel like we can't have friends outside of our faith community. I developed a ton of amazing friends through work, and they're not believers like I am, and they have given me perspective on healing and relationships that I honestly wouldn't have got without being friends with them. So I'm really grateful for that social circle. And they're surprisingly very supportive in my process. And then the other one is recreational. This one's actually really hard because as we get older, we kind of don't put a lot of stock into recreational. But recreational would be like a hobby group. Roller skating was something I started to do that I really liked. Gardening, plants, getting into a gardening group. I became a huge fan of rock climbing. I'd always wanted to do it. And excuse me, but I'm going to say I wanted to be a badass. And so I took up rock climbing, and when I didn't have my kids with me, I would go, and I met a lot of really amazing people there. And the other thing about this is that even though I was segregating myself from men, because I didn't think I was in a healthy place to pursue any kind of relationship, some of these activities were putting me around men who were proving to me that men are safe, men are honest, men have integrity, and men aren't trying to hurt me. So sometimes those groups can have a twofold like benefit for you. All right, so the thing I wanted to share with you, I mentioned a hack to plan for when you might want to give up. So because I wanted to make sure I circled back to that. So what you want to do is have something planned that you look forward to every 3 weeks, okay? You can even have something that you look forward to each day. I'm trying to think. Right now, I'm really looking forward to having a clean kitchen. After this, I'm going to go clean my kitchen. And I'm really looking forward to having a clean kitchen because it hasn't been that way in a while. Or I'm looking forward to going to church tonight. So I have something I look forward to every Wednesday night and every Saturday with church and getting to see my friends. But every 3 weeks or at least once a month, I try to have something that I'm looking forward to because that's what helps you push past that give up period. And these little rewards, or sometimes they're big rewards, feed our need for gratification, not instant gratification, but delayed gratification. And that's actually really healthy to do. So if you, have that little piece of chocolate in your desk drawer that you plan on enjoying after your kids go to sleep, that's something that you can look forward to help you push past that give up period. All right, let's see. I'm looking through my notes to make sure I didn't forgive anything. So gave you lots of suggestions here and things for you to be thinking about. Hang on, there we go. And areas where you can focus to help you give some, get some information or inspiration. So you've got all that listed there. Let's see, I'm looking through my notes to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, so going into the bare minimum. So you might have bare minimum days. It may look like just making sure you drink water, having dinner at the table with your kids. That's kind of a non-negotiable thing for me. We eat dinner at the table every night. But it counts because it's relational. And making a gratitude list. Those are some examples. So if you're having a bare minimum day, do at least 3 things, okay? Have a bare minimum 3 daily habits that you do. It could be 3 things that you can fit into a 10-minute time period. So just make sure that you be consistent in that way. The other thing is that I always try to be present with my kids because I am teaching them how to heal through my own healing behaviors. This is something that my parents didn't give me, and probably for many of you, your parents didn't give you this. They didn't model this type of behavior. So I want to make sure you do that with your kids. So now that I've gone through this, you're going to make your own list. So that's your homework. You're going to go through each category and brainstorm the things that you can do in those categories. And I already explained some of the importance of them, so some of them you might want to actually choose for yourself, but you might have totally different ones. Now Now, don't stress about whether or not something fits into that category or not, because sometimes things fit into multiple categories, and that's okay. Going for walks with my kids was physical, recreational, and relational. And it could be emotional if I'm working on mindfulness, for example. So it can kind of fit into multiple categories. So there I am, multitasking mama, but that's how that works. So now you have a blank one, and you're going to do it too, okay? Now let's see here. Now the one last thing that I want to leave you with is a visual to help you understand how healing can make you uncomfortable, because it's going to happen. And I think it's really important that you understand this. So picture yourself, and you can close your eyes while I'm talking about this. Picture yourself with a rubber band around your waist. And then on the other, like, it's around your waist, and then on the other side of the rubber band is a big, strong pole, like a telephone pole, okay? Can't move it. That pole represents your beliefs about what you need to do, be, what you need to feel loved, feel safe, feel like you belong. That's your pole of beliefs. So the rubber band is around you, and it's around your pole of beliefs. Now imagine that you start walking away from the pole towards the result that you want, okay? And as you're walking towards that result, that rubber band is being pulled tighter and tighter against your skin because it's firmly around that pole of beliefs. So we're stretching the rubber band, but the pole is not bending. It's standing strong, it's standing firm. And the rubber band gets tighter and tighter as you get closer and closer to what you want. I've seen many single women experience this in a new relationship, okay? As an example. Now, eventually the rubber band stops stretching and it snaps or retracts you back to the pole of beliefs. I do want to mention that sometimes the pole is people who we need to set healthy boundaries with, okay? Or maybe it's yourself, you need healthy boundaries. So you might notice that that rubber band is getting tighter a few weeks into your daily habits routine. This is when your beliefs have to start shifting, okay? Your new daily habits are going to put pressure there. I want you to embrace that discomfort. I want you to get curious about it. And I want you to ask yourself a lot of questions. This is where journaling really comes into play for your healing process. And why I really think it should be on a daily habits list. Because as we change and shift our beliefs, so does the world around us. And going back to that sequence, what was that sequence that I shared with you? I want to get up here and make sure I get it right in my notes. The sequence is beliefs create thoughts, thoughts create feelings, and then feelings create behavior and habits. Okay, so we're going to do some reverse engineering with our daily habits by changing our habits a little bit at a time. What I do not want to see any of you do is make a list like this and do all these things every day. Don't do that. Just do one from each category a day, no less than 3. All right, so that's what I'm going to leave you with. So if we have time, we'll come back for questions, comments, concerns, discussion. But for now, I'm going to leave you with this video, and that recording will also be sent out to all of you later. So you've got your feelings wheel printed out. You have your blank daily habits. You have your suggested daily habits, and I think that was it. Oh no, you have your note sheet. Okay, so those are the things that you have. I wish all of you the best and blessed time at this retreat. And when something feels icky, remember, get curious, not critical, and so that way you can move past it. All right, thank you so much for letting me talk to you. Have a good night.